60-minute mark. We didn't get those tier 5 items, but you know what? We had a hell of a game of Dota Gods. I'm happy to be a part of it, and we got a great game too, I'm sure, coming up as well.
I hope so. I mean, the way those two teams played, I think it was a nice clash of play styles where Secret were on a little bit of a timer, kind of need to close things out. At the same time, they scaled okay. Definitely the one big question mark that I think going to game 2 or looking back on game 1 is, playing Viper in the carrier role. That's not something Secret have done during this qualifier. It's not something that is just typically done. And the idea is you have this great early start. It went pretty well at shutting down the Doom, but it does feel like it wasn't kind of the hero that is going to, scale and give them a nice kind of backup, a plan B. Use your carries, your plan B for when your early to mid-game aggression fails, and they didn't have that.
Something else I want to kind of bring back to is, again, the Treant Protector. It's a hero that we hadn't seen yet in the LCQ. It's just rarely been seen in general. I don't think he necessarily dominated the game by any means, but I do feel like there is something to be said about that living armor just in the longevity of the usefulness throughout the whole game, right? In the sense that we saw, for example, there was that mid-tier 2 tower push that Secret was going for, and it kept taking forever to kill. They had to stay there an extra 30-plus seconds, where if a Treant wasn't in the game, that tower's dead, and they're already doing something else. So I think there's something to be said about that Treant pick when it came to the living armor.
Yeah, I mean, when the story of the game for Xtreme Gaming is, just stalling and buying time for your TP to get farmed, it's got to be one of the best heroes and spells to have in the game, because they lost 2 lanes of Rax. If you remove Living Armor from the equation, they probably lose that 3rd lane of Rax, and if Mega Creeps is likely GG. So I think it definitely was a difference maker. It's a great point you bring him up. Not to mention the teamfight presence as well. Those multiple teamfights where those overgrowths were turning the tides of the battle. So something that I hope we get to maybe see a bit more of.
Speaking of supports on the other side of the spectrum in terms of just picked up all the time is, again, that Marcy. Marcy was picked up by Secret last game, that first pick, and normally if it gets first picked, 8-3 overall record this event. Again, in general, so good. Didn't necessarily work out, though, for Secret that time around. So you gotta, that's one of the first things that I'm gonna be looking for in this game 2 draft. Is the Marcy gonna get banned? Are we still gonna see it again? I mean, it's still a really good hero, but knowing it's coming off of a loss, that tends to maybe downplay the hero, at least in this series, a little bit more.
Yeah, they may feel like they want to go a different direction with their support duo. I think Marcy's definitely fine. It leaves you pretty open. The Clockwork was a great kind of combo with a range cores with the Viper and the Shadow Fiend. But I think having Clockwork with the Marcy, the two kind of overlap as this like tanky melee initiator. Whereas on the other side, you have this Lion that's sitting on the outskirts of the fights, casting a lot of disables, killing illusions with the mana drain. I feel like once it got to the mid to late game, that's where probably Secret were thinking like, oh, I wish we had that, range support that could throw out spells and throw out some disables from the outskirts of the fight. Having both Clock and Marcy, you have two heroes who kind of do the same thing.
Yeah. As we're waiting for game number 2 to begin here, just obviously, I'm sure people are bouncing around about the streams, even have them up at the same time, but just in case, there is one other series going on. Na'Vi versus T1 over on the mainstream, in fact. Na'Vi is up 1-0 against T1, and, that's an interesting story going over there, where Na'Vi, they looked really good in the group stages. They finished with that 7-3 record, top of Group A. T1, expectations, mainly because, let's be honest, of Ana and Thompson on that squad and what they can bring to the table. They made it to the winner's side, but not necessarily looking as strong as perhaps some expected.
Yeah, I think with T1, there's definitely, when you watch them play, there's still the growing pains. Ana kind of goes the year without playing much professional Dota. He will stand in for a LAN hero there, but he's not going through the grind the same way most players are. And Thompson, he's going through the grind of pub games throughout the year. He's not played a tournament, so you've got two players who are complete, superstars when they're on their A game, but they also, they need to click with the rest of the team, which is what isn't happening yet. But Na'Vi, I don't think many people had Na'Vi in their two teams to come out of the LCQ. Most people who had an Eastern European team were putting in VP. So Na'Vi is a really pleasant surprise coming out of that region.
Yeah, I'll admit I was definitely one of those. Again, group stages is only one part of the event, of course. Now the playoffs, so it really matters as we keep going back to. And again, this is a winner bracket portion, but lower bracket matches going to be taking place today. Elimination will be happening by the end of today here from the LCQ, and it's kind of crazy. This is one of, if not the biggest TI events we've technically had in terms of the amount of teams when you throw in the LCQ, the plus 12 teams. So we're going to finally start eliminating them one by one throughout starting today. And it's just, again, it's kind of one of those bittersweet moments. It's cool to know that we're evolving in the event, but at the same time, gonna have to say bye to some teams. But these two teams, again, staying in it, at least no matter what happens in this series. But right now, Xtreme Gaming with that 1-0 lead over Secret. But hey, maybe call it caster's bias in this sense. I want a game 3, so let's go Secret. All right, I'm just gonna say it.
I hope so too. I mean, Secret, obviously, for the English-speaking audience, the Western fans, they're one of the most popular teams in the world. But then the other side, Xtreme Gaming, that's kind of what they are for the Chinese region. There's so many kind of popular star players there, DY and PYW, Old 11. This was part of a Vici Gaming core in the past that had tremendous success, that won majors. So they're a team that's had huge success in their own rights and gathered a ton of fans over the years, especially some of their veteran players. Paparazzi, of course, a huge name in the Chinese region. And it would just be great to see a game 3 between these two teams, because these two teams do feel like, as far as name power goes, two of the juggernauts of this LCQ, even though they didn't, dominate the group stage necessarily.
Off the bat, I was going to say, and a hero that we are seeing banned a lot is that Undying. Well, it wasn't banned, first thing I noticed, and immediately Xtreme Gaming's like, thank you very much, we'll take the Undying.
Yeah, bit of a trade-off. Secret decide we don't want to leave Marcia in. They're happy to first pick it, but now that they don't have the first pick, so other than that, the other bans remain the same. I think one potential switch up if Secret really want to get these, classic puppy heroes, the Enchantress is one option as a first phase hero. I don't necessarily think it's the best approach. Instead, they go Nyx Assassin right now, but you do need to kind of address the Undying's laning strength, or at least pick heroes that don't get destroyed by Undying in lane, because that's one of the areas where it's really hard to play into.
Comfort right here is plays a lot of this Nyx Assassin. It's going to cover, Enchantress even comes to mind as another one that Puppy I know has been playing a lot recently. So I wonder if that's going to kind of be, maybe a double support opening here. But possibilities, no, it's different direction. They go the Shadow Fiend once again. But how about this confidence of XG, the Morphling? We talked about it last game. I mean, it's making an appearance here.
They were ready. I mean, I kind of touched a bit upon how coaches become so important now that you're out of the group stage. You have all this data. The fact they didn't take a second to consider whether Morphling was still good. They must have already knew Nyx SF was a likely opener, because they they insta-snagged Morphling. And it's a hero that now it's going to have to be addressed, but the problem is you pick it in this second pick of the first phase for Xtreme Gaming, and you instantly get to ban all the counters. So there's not going to be an AA, there's not going to be some of those heavy magical damage or burst heroes or disables that Morphling doesn't want to play into. It's a great time to pick Morphling.
Now, the something we see a lot when the Morphling, and pretty much every time I want to say, is you pick it up as either the second, maybe the fourth one. You want bans after the fact, if not already banned, and where I'm getting at is that Ancient Apparition, because immediately they ban the Ancient Apparition. Of course, one of those kind of just natural counters to the hero, but never going to see that AA in a game when on the opposition. At least you shouldn't. Banned out here, but
yeah,
bans to follow.
Yep, I'm curious to see how Secret approach their SF draft this time around. You touched upon SF's being one of the most picked and played heroes during this LCQ, and it's in large because of that flexibility, but I don't feel like they had a great SF draft last game. I think picking it with the Viper, having these two let's sit back range right-clicking cores didn't really make a lot of sense to me in a lot of ways. And then they have a Darkseer who, can frontline, but it just felt a bit clunky. So I think I want to see them kind of pick up some more classic heroes around SF that can kind of synergize a bit better.
Yeah. Or get that Chrysalis hero that could just, farm and take over eventually if need be. Viper not necessarily on track to do that. So bands coming out. We got the Ancient Apparition, Monkey King, and Beastmaster from XG. Lena and Earthshaker taken out by Secret, of course. They don't want to pick Earthshaker themselves into the Morphling, and they ain't going to give it up either.
It does feel a bit like we're already potentially headed the same, way as game one in terms of overall strategy, where SF is this more tempo core where you want to play around this first Roshan early to mid-game timings. And then the other side, instead of TB, it's Morphling, but it's, a bit greedier, a bit like, okay, let's give up our towers because Morphling's farming, let's play for a late game. So it does feel like a bit of the same old story from game number one. We're only, 4 picks in, 2 for each team, so that can very quickly change depending what the two teams round their drafts out with. But that's at least kind of my first impression seeing SF versus Morphling.
Mars ban to come, and now Secret. Also a bit of reserve time used on that one, but now Secret's turn to third pick. And again, speaking of similar to last game, I mean, Viper is still on the board, but like we just talked about, not necessarily unless they want to run the Viper in the off lane this time around, then perhaps could still be the potential pick for the side of Secret.
Yeah. I don't love it. I think, yeah, just for the reasons mentioned, it doesn't feel like the best hero to draft with SF. Instead, they get Puppy's Hero the Bane, so lockdown control, a hero to, make Morphling second guess initiating, may force him into a Lincoln Sphere just to help himself not get gripped and nightmared and whatnot. And generally, Bane's a hero that, this is the hero I feel like they didn't have last game. This range support that sits back and casts spells and you force your enemy to say, hey, we have to kill this Lion or we have to kill this Bane. Otherwise, we lose the fight. If Bane gets off a full duration Fiend's Grip on Morphling, that fight's not going to look good for you. So it gives Xtreme Gaming a target they have to go on and just, I think, basically creates a problem that has to be addressed, which the support duo last game from Secret didn't really do.
Yeah, and I know Bane is a puppy support hero, certainly, as you were just referencing there, but I will say this is one of those heroes as far as the, not picked hero list that always comes out or not addressed at all in, like, the LCQ so far. Bane has not been banner picked yet. So this is the first appearance for Bane in this event, which that was one of those surprising ones to me, seeing on the list. So interesting enough, we see it here for Team Secret, of course, does bring that crowd control. Yep. As you're getting at, that's certainly necessary.
Xtreme Gaming
can be confident with that. But now XG, speaking of crowd control, they go back to their Lion at least. And
and their Brood. Old 11. He did lose a game on it, but he's 2-1 so far this LCQ. This guy is one of the Brood players. Like, he's always loved and played this hero a ton. He had some crazy win streak on the hero as well for a period of time where I think he won like 15 straight games on Brood Mother. And his Brood it causes problems. And you've got a support duo with Bane and Nyx. That's why they picked the Brood here. Like, yeah, Secret still get two heroes. They're likely going to pick a Kunkka type carry or mid laner. They need a Tide Hunter, Kunkka, whatever it may be. But he feels like it's a good enough game because the supports are really bad against Brood. And I mentioned, like, against Bane, you need a hero to get on top of Bane and cause him problems in a fight. Brood is like one of the best options that exists in that kind of sense.
Yeah, it's not afraid to just kind of charge on in there and get work done. So, love to see the Brood Mother. At least, I don't mind seeing it as far as Secret's concerned. Maybe a different story, but, what kind of answers are they going to figure to have here against the Brood? Is there a heroes that, like, what is the direction now as far as a Brood Mother being in the game? What are you looking to pick up to address that?
Yeah, I mean, you need the AoE wave clear a bit just to push out lanes to address Spiderlings. Kunkka, Tidehunter were mentioned, and that's not a hero that really addresses the Brood directly. This is more, we're going to ignore the fact there's a Brood in the game for now and pick something we feel can maybe do the same thing as a Brood, which is really put on a lot of early to mid-game pressure. Lycan can hold his own in lane against Brood. Brood is not the strongest of laners, so it does feel like this is something Secret maybe workshopped for their own draft, and they didn't really consider the Brood so much, and they're just like, we have this strat, we think it's one of our best strats, we're going to play it regardless of the fact they picked Brood.
Yeah, sometimes the best way to address something is just simply ignore it and focus on what you want to do, and that feels like a bit of the mentality that Secret may be going for right here as a result of that Lycan pick. But yeah, they got tempo. I mean, they got ways to really push and run at you, I like to say. And it's against someone similar to last game. They weren't necessarily on a tight clock, but it's a lineup that can really get going early on. And against the likes of a Morphling specifically, that seems like that potentially could be a pretty good idea.
Yeah, it seems like that's the direction maybe Secret want to go with their games, which is playing faster games. Like, they don't want to go for these long 60-minute games as much as other teams, even though that is a bit of a trend with the patch. Because, yeah, like an SF, this is Roche taking, this is early towers. They're going very much more for this early mid-game.
They ban out the Invoker themselves. Legion Commander taken away from XG. Could have been certainly a good hero against the Brood Mother. So, although we don't see her a lot, makes sense at this point.
5 seconds remaining.
Ban option.
Does feel like something that could just be a nice little save as well as Brood Mother answer. Does a lot of little things well this game. It's also potentially an answer for the Morphling with the Blink dual initiation. So Xtreme Gaming going to just prioritize banning some of these early game heroes that are a little bit spooky for them. They also banned Bloodseeker, so I mean, you look at this, like these recent bans, like Monkey, Beast, Legion, Bloodseeker. They're just these tempo heroes, these heroes that play fast, put you on the back foot, and don't give Xtreme Gaming, time for their lineup to come online.
5 seconds. Xtreme Gaming's turn to pick.
Kunkka ban after the Bloodseeker, so now the final pick for XG is going to be happening. You mentioned Old 11, likely the one to play the Broodmother, of course. You figure the Morphling safe lane, so you have the mid option. And we got our good old Pango. We've been seeing plenty of this hero, Pangolier, for XG.
Yep. It does give them a very tiny bit of flex with Brood going mid, Pango off lane. I think it's unlikely given that, Old 11 is just such a Brood specialist. I think it's almost certainly going into the off lane there. And Pango, a hero that gives them team fight. Like when you're playing these kind of carry off laners, you need to get a bit more team fight, lockdown control from your mid laner, which is where Pango, I think, has become a bit more popular in the mid lane because we're seeing more of these, Viper style off laners, Razors and stuff if you go back to the last patch. And that's where, suddenly Pango just feels like a jack of all trades when it comes to mid lane. It's a bit of team fight, pretty good lane, has a escape mobility spell, has decent survivability with the shield crash. So it does feel like the hero just does a bit of everything.
Choose your hero.
Well, a hero that does a bit of everything, it feels like, as well.
Yeah.
Dawnbreaker. Pretty good at that, so that's the final pick. My mind was going a couple of different directions there, honestly, but Dawnbreaker, always just one of those, whenever in doubt, I'm not saying that will happen here, but it never really feels like a bad pick, if you get what I'm saying. It's going to be in the hands of Chrysalis this game. A position 1 Dawnbreaker is what we see final pick.
I think position 1 Dawnbreaker can feel a little all-in, where it's like, okay, let's, we're doing position 1 Dawn. This game shouldn't drag out too long. I say position 1, Nisha, I mentioned him being the star player of Secret. He is the real carry. We saw it last game. It was the same thing. They have this Chrysalis, Viper, or Dawnbreaker. The idea is that he's not meant to carry the game. He's meant to play this hero that can have a very high impact early on in the game and, let Nisha play a bit greedier. We're going to be seeing that a bit more here again. But I think Dawnbreaker, what it really gives him is this hero that can play well around the Lycan. Like Lycan's going to be looking to really push the tempo early on. And I think Dawnbreaker, particularly with around the Solar Guardian, really complements that very well.
Well, really just the whole team, especially the Nyx Assassin too, right? Bane's distance is when he gets an Aether Lens. I mean, this is a team that all of a sudden a swarm is just going to be on top of you. If you're not careful, you don't have enough of that vision around the map. So speaking of swarms, of course, you do have that Broodmother, though, on the other side. And that kind of goes back to the Dawnbreaker, too, where the Celestial Hammer is certainly a nice tool to have against her. So like we talked about, I mean, kind of a jack of all trades and a hero that really just makes sense when you think about it as a final pick for Secret. So I don't know. You think they got enough of an answer for the Brood, though? This is Old 11's Broodmother, after all. Is there enough there?
Yeah, I actually like Secret's draft better this game. I mean, I think we both agreed that last game it felt like Xtreme Gaming had the more kind of classic draft, and their draft just overall looked stronger. This game, I'd say it's the other way. Morphling with the Broodmother, I think there's just a little bit of kind of asymmetry there where Morphling wants to kind of play slow, farm it up. Broodmother wants to, take over the enemy jungle, pressure towers, really, play a bit faster. So I think all in all, I would at least lean a bit more towards Secret this game.
All right. So the webs have started to be placed down there at that bottom lane. Bounty runes to spawn. Both teams going to say hello to one another, literally, as the waving comes out. That's something we've noticed in the playoff, or more so the group stages so far, this LCQ, guys, is maybe it's just the pressure that people are feeling or whatever, but there hasn't been a lot of, like, emote spam and tips coming. There's been the occasional, but maybe we should wait till the group stages and even the main event for that, I suppose.
Yeah, too many mannered teams here in the LCQ, I guess. We need some of the OG flair, or I don't know, LGD like to get on board with that too. Team Spirit. I think the teams who have maybe been there a bit more before. I mean, these two teams have players who have been there before, but I think the fact you're in the LCQ just adds an extra level of pressure, like where you're either a team who's new to the kind of competitive scene in the case of like some of the younger teams here, or you're a team like Secret and Xtreme Gaming where you've maybe underperformed because you didn't qualify for TI yet. So as a result, the teams are maybe a bit stiffer than they'd otherwise be.
Yeah, it is that odd feeling. You're kind of you're part of the TI event, but in a way you're not really yet, right? It is definitely a different feeling than what we've really ever seen before when it comes to TI itself. So perhaps certainly something part of it. But Nisha versus Paparazzi, man, that's a good matchup to watch. I'm watching bottom lane. PYW is actually getting low, and this might be a kill. He's gonna pop his stick. He is gonna be fine, but he got low.
Yeah, he gets out of there okay, and then, yeah, back in the mid lane, you had Nisha hitting triple raises, so a lot of good harass coming out from the secret side early on. They're not getting the kills, but they're going to be forcing out a lot of this early regen. SF's zoning Pengo away from the creep wave. The level 1 shield crash, you really need that damage block against the raises, but Nisha just going all in on mangoes means he's just going to keep on using this spam, get early bottle, probably even buy more mangoes just to crush this Pangolier as much as possible.
Yeah, so this is what you're expecting, almost sounds like. Again, two very, very high caliber players, but in this matchup, especially if he plays aggressive with those races, it seems like it's going to be a tough time for Paparazzi.
Yeah. If there's someone you want in the mid lane in a tough matchup, maybe Paparazzi's your guy. There was a 1v1 mid-tournament at one of the big lands, I think it was DAC a while back, and he won it against a lot of, you know, top mid laners in the world. So he's a guy who knows his fair share of mid matchups.
You know, at the time, wasn't he in position 1 as well? I want to
Yes.
say, like, that was the fun, because I remember that. I was like, wait a second, it's not even technically a mid player, and here he is.
Yeah,
well, now
he's kind of that like Arteezy style player where like he played mid for a little bit when it was like this greedy mid laner, and then he swapped over to the carry role because you know you mids couldn't be as greedy as you know Paparazzi would like to be. But
Top lane, haven't addressed that yet, but Lou on that Morphling, you see Bane in the hands of Puppy, using that brain sap to help secure a last hit on that creep. But so far, 7-1 Morphling, 8-3 Lycan. On the other side, the Helm of the Dominator queued up, of course. Pretty typical build there on the Lycan that we expect to see.
does feel like the only lane where there's maybe a bit of a mismatch is that mid lane. Maybe even to a small extent bottom lane. Brood's doing very well so far. Getting a lot of early last hits here, and even finding some pressure onto this Zayat's Nyx Assassin.
Yeah. Silken Bola doing some work. Chrysalis has another Celestial Hammer in 3 seconds, but they're not afraid to brawl. That is on the side of XG. I mean, we've seen PYW but as long as Broodmother's there to kind of protect him, then it feels like XG is going to come out on top of these fights.
Constant Silken Bola, 40% mischance, and as a result, Chrysalis has just not had a good lane. But does have at least some of these other lanes maybe going a bit more in his team's favor. Top lane resolution, not free farming by any means, but you know, as a Lycan, it's very much like you're just looking to get enough XP and farm to get you to that Helm. The Helm plus level 6 is where you can really start making some moves. You kill anyone who comes to defend towers, you push people out of the lane, you take towers, so there's a lot you can do once you get that Helm up.
So speaking of items, I know it's again goes back to Dawnbreaker somewhat being just you can do a lot of things on this hero, but what direction are you thinking we're going to be seeing here? Is this going to be that kind of Deso, the BKB just kind of brawl? I can right click you, do a lot of damage, Dawnbreaker assistance, or something else?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail there. I don't think there's too many other ways to really go. I think the BKB just naturally kind of suits the Dawnbreaker here when you're playing as a core. Maybe it's just a question of whether you want to get the Deso first. But then later on, you can start looking at some more like tanky survivability items, like the Satanic type items, maybe as considerations. But utility Dawnbreaker when you're playing as a 1 position, even when you've got Nisha SF on your team, you can't go too kind of team oriented with your item build.
Got to be a little greedy. Chrysalis, I'm sure he'll be fine with that. But yeah, they are not afraid to tool down here at this bottom. And as I say that, once again, great stun though from PYW. That are spike stalled any chance they had of initiating on ult 11 there.
Oh, this mid lane just keeps getting worse and worse every time I look at it. Nisha was bringing out more mangoes.
Wow.
He's kept Pango down to 14 last hits, and there's 16 denies, so it's a lot of XP. Level 4 and 3/4 on Pango. It's almost a full level advantage going Nisha's way. This is, I feel like we're watching 2014 Shadowfiend players in the mid lane just dominating their lane.
Well, 2014, Dawnbreaker didn't exist, and she's in trouble right now. She's going to get hexed up, and Insatiable Hunger not going to be a kill. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Bane goes down at the top lane. So both lanes having some initiation, and XG ends up getting the kill at the top side.
Yeah. I didn't quite catch that one, but it looks like just some decays and waveform being used there. I mean, that's not really a lane where they should get a kill, but perhaps Puppey just getting a little bit out of position or overcommitting there. So first blood going their way, not to the Morphling at least. It was just the Undying who managed to snipe the kill. So not the end of the world for Team Secret, who are still overall doing pretty well in this top lane and exceedingly well in the mid lane.
I want to once again go back to that mid matchup that you're talking about there. And is this an oversight almost by XG? Because again, this is a case where Pango was picked fourth after the Shadow Fiend. You pretty much knew that it was going to be a Shadow Fiend mid. Is that an oversight, or is it, you know what, we'll just deal with it? Pango will still be fine in the long run, or what?
I think a bit of both. I'm sure Paparazzi did not expect the lane to go this poorly. But this is also just the Nisha factor. This guy is one of the most mechanically sound, scary mid laners in this LCQ. I imagine Paparazzi just feeling, you know, after a game 1 win, he's probably like, you know, it's a bad matchup, but I'll make it work. And then Pango's going to be a really good hero in the mid lane. But at the same time, this has gone really badly for him. So
yeah.
He's going to need a rotation mid around his level 6. Like, he'd love a kill on Nisha, like Rolling Thunder plus support rotation, but it's almost a bit too predictable, so it's going to be hard for him to kind of make that play happen.
Yeah, I mean, you see rotations happening to the mid lane right now. In fact, here we go, Lion, Durspike, and not much coming of it. In fact, he gets pinged out on the Lion. Zach running him down, impales, but just going to say hello and start poking at him a bit more. So yeah, killing the Shadow Fiend. Secret's aware of that as well. They're protecting him, and they're not going to let anything free happen. So they're going to just absolutely secure this domination of Shadow Fiend. And this is going to be a setup, by the way. Pango. Okay, no. TP coming in, canceled, and that's that.
Yeah, you don't really have a play that you can hit a raise, but he's just going to swash away. So Nisha just continue to happily farm and do his thing in this mid lane. It's always been kind of the best way of addressing an SF mid, where this hero is such a lane dominator, but you just gank him. But everybody's kind of learned that over the years. SF wasn't really playable just because the hero was kind of weak for a while, but now that SF's back in meta, teams are finding ways to enable it and not let it get so easily ganked in this mid lane.
I like it. Something just feels right about it, because he was not a relevant hero for a while there, but again, the second most picked hero so far in this LCQ, and I'm sure more to come throughout the group stages and the main event itself here at TI11. It just feels right. It feels like Dota's right when Shadow Fiend's mid.
Shadow Fiend finds himself a rune, level 7 with an illusion rune, not the most impactful rune. Could maybe save you from a gank, the Dispel, but both teams, it's not really been a... Usually you think, like, these games like this are often played around, you know, power runes, like 6 minutes in, everyone rotates for these runes, which happened this game, but it was less about... Because of how badly mid lane went for Paparazzi, there weren't fights over the runes. It was just like a, let's try and get the rune and then keep farming or catching up. So this game is kind of more slowly heading towards a point where we're going to see those rotations start happening, because for Xtreme Gaming, you've got Brood and Morphling on your side lanes. Neither of these heroes are your playmakers. Your playmaker is your mid laner who has lost his lane. So the result is that Xtreme Gaming, you know, they're going to have to play a slower game and just let Brood kind of do her thing alone in this bottom lane.
Yeah, and for good reason. There's been a lot of focus on Shadow Fiend and they made the matchup and how Nisha's just dominating. But you zoom out a bit, you look at the big picture of the net worth, and Brood and Morphling are both keeping up with the Shadow Fiend even in terms of that. So, hey, 2 more than 1. It seems like Xtreme Gaming is actually in the better spot, and they do have the overall net worth lead at this point.
Yeah. No, I mean, considering, they're the ones with Morphling in their hands, they have kind of won this early game, at least ever so slightly, despite the mid lane. So, kind of to go back to your question, maybe this was a scenario where Xtreme Gaming were willing to just pick this, you know, this bad matchup mid, knowing that these side lanes would go so well for them. And Pango wouldn't be pressured to make these plays. Like, if these side lanes were losing, this game would feel really bad, because, you know, you lose your side lanes, your mid laner needs to get active, but that's just not been the case.
Nisha is going to Mask Madness Hope bottom lane, though. It's a little bit awkward there. It could dodge by old 11, and now Chrysalis trying to turn their attention immediately to the Nyx Assassin, though, as soon as he appears. Celestial Hammer burning down PYW in the background, and Zach is good for the time being, but old 11 still chasing. Puts another whip down, gets the kill. He avoids the Starbreaker stun. Celestial Hammer forward again. Old 11, though, trying to figure this out. Can he actually go back in? Probably not, especially with Bane coming in. Nice job with the Earth Spike. preventing Bane from going the immediate sleep. Although he's running back in, Bane getting low. That was greedy at its finest right there. I guess he saw Paparazzi coming in anyways. Figured he would go for a play, but down goes Bane, and now Chrysalis in trouble. Missed there? You're right. The Starbreaker's done.
no.
11 falls. This is a disaster on the setup for XG. That is not what you want. Oh, yeah, unfortunate.
That was just like a straight line rolling thunder, and line drive just went right through the hole in the glove there. Yeah, it was a nice side set from Crystallis, but that's a rolling thunder you've got to land if you're Paparazzi, and gets the Brood kill. That's a huge setback because that bottom lane dive was looking pretty good and well calculated from Xtreme Gaming to, you know, rotate in Paparazzi, keep the Brood alive, but it was just missing your spells, and as a result, Secret are going to feel pretty happy about the outcome there. They had Rezo. He actually killed the Undying up top with his ultimate, so he's been getting a lot of good farms. So things suddenly kind of shaping up a little bit better for Secret after a kind of poor early game.
Yeah, and it's also one of those mental things. So whatever with the net worth, but yeah. I'm sure that because for Paparazzi's case, that's unfortunate. You know, they're not feeling good about that one. It's because this is going to get worse. Paparazzi, the smackdown from Dawnbreaker, and she immediately ports back to the bottom. That's Solar Guardian setting up a kill. Yeah. That's not good for Paparazzi.
Yeah, Crystallis is on Broodmother duty, so has to keep going back to this bottom lane. Does clear a lot of spiders. That's some juicy money going his way. Does need to be careful not to go down here, but with Zayats in the neighborhood, he'll be A-okay. He's TP, but there's no Fiend script here, so if they can just disengage here, I think you're happy. I mean, that's kind of the point of the Brood, is just to force these rotations, make it so that they either lose this tower, or if they want to defend it, they have to bring 2, maybe even 3 heroes to defend it.
It's a little too fast on that Broodmother. But yeah, Dawnbreaker, you mentioned on that duty and controlling this bottom lane the best she can, and does so pretty well right there. Has an Orbit Corrosion. Oh yeah, okay, well she actually had the Echo Saber queued up, but now she's going through a couple. Yeah, she's trying to figure out what was the Desolator, now the BKB, so Crystal is trying to figure out the best itemization here earlier on in the game. But speaking of Broodmother, once again going on a puppy. And the Finger of Death going to be committed by PYW to secure that kill, and Dawnbreaker, attention turn to him. Something being delivered to the Brood in the meantime. There's a kill elsewhere on the Undying at the top lane, but Chrysalis still trying to get out of this. Celestial Hammer forward, another Earthspike connects though, and Chrysalis is tanky though.
Can he hit the Impale? Got him.
He needs to hit it. Yeah, auto attacks will do it.
So Lu's trapped up top. Okay, sorry. Yeah, up top they were chasing Lu for a kill on the Morphling, and Zayats found him with an Impale. Canceled his TP, but unfortunately Lu was in the tree, so they couldn't actually finish off the Morphling. So he'll get out A-okay. But a big kill down bottom on that Dawnbreaker, which opens up the tier 1 tower now.
Yeah, apologies. I was off watching that bottom lane the whole time. So both lanes having some pretty significant potential fights there, but certainly XG feeling good about the outcome, especially when you factor in that tier 1 tower going down after it. So another kind of shift in momentum. How about this build on Morphling, by the way? Going the early Lincolns feels a little more old school.
Yeah, it is very old school. We've seen a lot of reemergence of Lincolns. The items had to get nerfed a couple of times. It feels like a nice, like, okay, if you're not playing Morphling for any kind of early game timing, it just transitions well into your late game items. I'll lose DY in the Undying here, but yeah, the big thing with this is, like, there's no obvious item he needs right now, so he can get this Lincolns and then figure out, like, where he wants to go with his item build.
Yeah. Now, I know you talked about it in the draft there, Gods, but it's, you know, we've seen it now twice, and it feels like every 2 minutes it's a long cooldown, but that Solar Guardian is just there to set up a kill. Granted, that was an Undying, not the most prime target, but hey, you'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, the one before that was Paparazzi's Pingalier, so they've had a lot of success with the Solar Guardian. Mid lane Puppy could be in some trouble here. Not fun. That's the Broodmother effect.
Not much you can do about that one. Shadowfiend, though, this would be much more critical. Nisha, the bash from Pango goes back in, and this time much better from Paparazzi. They secure the kill on the Shadowfiend, and he's out for 40 seconds. Xtreme Gaming certainly finding their rhythm now if they hadn't already. And guess what? The old 11 Broodmother is leading the way.
Yeah, at the forefront of all their aggression. I mean, it's not even just like they're playing around all 11. All 11's playing around the team. He's the one rotating and leading the charge to first kill Puppy and then follow it up with the SF kill. So this mid-tier 1 tower would be a huge prize to claim. It's not the easiest, and with Secret around, it does look like it'll be defended with some of those Celestial Hammers being thrown out. And, you know, Xtreme Gaming, I think, are happy, like, hey, okay, we killed an SF, we still got Morphling farming. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. We can get this tower later on.
Yeah. You see Lycan, Helm of the Dominator, has been finished. Haven't really mentioned Resolution too much yet. Working on the Helm of the Overlord, of course. And he's getting close to it, but speaking of already having a decent item, that go back to the Broodmother, the Wraith Pact has been finished to go with that Falcon Blade and the Arcane Boots on him.
Yeah, she's just this scary teamfight presence now. Like, whenever they want to go for a push or a play, like, you have this Brood in the front lines, very tanky with all her health, the Wraith Pact giving extra survivability as well. It just makes it very hard for a lot of these heroes to kind of go into Xtreme Gaming until we see some like BKB pickups, like Nisha's SF, BKB queued up, Dawnbreaker halfway to her BKB as well. So it does feel like these BKBs are going to come out, and then Secret's going to kind of feel like a bit of a, you know, a second wind.
Puppy. He's not Clockwork this time. He has got to be pretty careful right there. Almost going uphill in a certain death, but
going for Roche.
They are trying to do Roche, yeah.
Xtreme Gaming, they're all here. They're ready to contest this, and they can scout it out with Spiderlings.
There you go, Swashbuckle, and the fight commences. Shapeshift activated by Resolution. Trying to find his timing. Near Spike stun. Blue morphing into the Nyx Assassin. This is a little awkward. Morphling has to be careful. Spike Carapace, Paparazzi in the back lines, though. We're going with that Rolling Thunder. Double stun onto the Shadow Fiend. He's at half-life. Here comes the Solar Guardian, however, on top of Resolution. And Pango's dead. The grip to lock him down. No chance. So XG, they are spread out right now.
He's still got the DD for another 5 or so seconds. He wants to finish this Roshan, and does look like Xtreme Gaming are going to have to give this one up. They're probably, you know, going back to the last game mentality, like, okay, we thought we could contest this. I mean, they had a chance to. Secret were just positioned really well there with the double damage SF in the front lines. The Rolling Thunder was great, but Puppy was positioned in some trees to get a nice grip off on the Rolling Thunder, and Nisha just, like, 4-shot the Pengo. Unfortunately, you know, Brood can come in and try and deal with the Bane, but you don't have that silence or stun to stop the grip from channeling. So just a great play from Secret to recognize that, hey, with this CD, Roche is ours.
Yeah, that was a hell of a fight for Secret, really was. I thought for sure XG was going to have a much better chance in terms of initiating there, but you're right, the positioning and the prioritizing of the targets, and then the Bane lockdown coming into play to secure it for them, and they secure also the Aegis on a Shadow Fiend. He's almost finished with the BKB, so he'll have that to go with the Aegis. Feels nice for this Radiant squad. The Shapeshift on cooldown for another 30 seconds for Lycan. But once that's back up, maybe try to make another play. But Old 11, as soon as that fight was realized that actually, like, okay, we're just going to give up Roshan, he immediately went to the bottom lane and started farming more down here.
Yeah.
The Assault Kyros is coming.
Yeah, this is one of the biggest things with Brood. You're just such a farming machine. It's been nightmared up down bottom here. They've got follow-up, but they toggle it off with the Spiderling. And Puppy.
Oh.
Wow.
Well,
He almost
he's
dies.
alive. he's alive. That's good.
Yep.
Very close.
Don't think they want to stick around this bottom lane. This is going to be a kind of a game of cat and mouse now, where Xtreme Gaming, similar to the last game, do not want to fight into Aegis. They want to just buy some time, let Morphling get like the second, third item up. He's got Lincoln's Yasha, Aghanim's queued up as well. But they have been caught here. They'll lose a line, and this is the big difference from last game. I feel like Secret just have way better catch. So they're in this position where they get an Aegis, and they're like, okay, we want to, you know, we need to do some stuff here. And with Nyx Assassin, Bane, Dawnbreaker, they actually can make stuff happen.
Yeah, we stressed that. The reach they have is good, and if they can catch on 11, that is massive. Zayak with the Impale stun, the beat down of the Starbreaker. Resolution running, it doesn't have a Shapeshift up. Getting there a little too slowly in an Old 11. Managing to survive unless Resolution really goes for this, but yeah, that'd be risky. So they get the tier 1 tower, do the damage, and they're going to keep pushing as 5. Well, I guess it's 4 now.
Just great use of the Lycan Wolves there to scout, just sending him into the trees. It set up the kill almost on the Brood, but that's just the strength of this Brood. So damn tanky. The itemization into the plate mail now going into AC, recognizing that all this damage is physical. SF Lycan, it's going to help the Pengo out if he gets gripped. And speaking of Pengo, he's now smoked up. They want to defend this bottom lane. They're going to fight into the Aegis. They feel like they've hit the item timings to take this fight.
PYW, there's that jump, the great two-player stun, Resolution caught, and so was Bane. He's dead off the bat. Nisha did get a good Requiem from the distance. Paparazzi, though, Rolling Thunder knocks him, and now 0-11, it's his turn to go in, but with the BKB activation, Nisha feeling like a raid boss right now. As soon as it wears off the Resolution, not a raid boss. He's going to end up going down thanks to Morphling, and now Nisha's in trouble. The BKB is worn off. Zayak going to do what he can. It doesn't feel like it's going to be nearly enough, though, so Aegis will be spent. Zayak, he's definitely dead. And now Shadow Fiend, what do? Can you get out of this? The answer is no. He's just dead.
Wow. What a bold play. They just smoke up, run right into them. Lion just charging head first with a two-hero impale here. And it's a great job finding those two heroes because once you kill the Bane there's no Fiend script to address the Rolling Thunder. Paparazzi kind of has to roll away because of the heavy right-click damage, but there's no danger to his own life, so he's able to re-engage. All they have to do is basically bide their time for the SF BKB to wear off, and once it does, the fight goes so smoothly for them. So we'll see it here again. Just what a team fight. Playing entirely around the Tombstone as well. So Tombstone plus Wraith Pack. There's just too much like summons and junk on the ground that Secret can't really address.
You know, I hate to say it though, but the biggest factor I think that fight was Chrysalis was top lane during all of that. His Solar Guardian was on cooldown still.
Yeah.
So if he's there, that fight's certainly much different, let alone with the ultimate being ready. But without him able to come in, you see that on the replay there, it just felt like a lost cause at that point. They were down there position 1. They could not withstand that pressure. And yeah, great smoke play though from XG, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's almost like it was like a calculated decision from Secret where they're like, okay, we have this Aegis, we can do this even with Solar Guardian on cooldown. But obviously they got heavily punished for it because Xtreme Gaming are like, actually, we can take this fight, you know?
Yeah.
We'll play the numbers game, and you may have an Aegis, but without your Dawnbreaker, this fight is not going to go well for you.
Yeah, you're right. That's the information game right there, absolutely. So credit to XG and making the play with it. Speaking of Dawnbreaker, she's at the bottom lane right now, currently by herself, and might be in trouble.
Once again, they're split up. They have Dawnbreaker alone down bottom, while the rest of the team is top. And they're going to get follow-up kills as well.
Yeah, they were top. They TP in to kind of support, and that's not going to work. Puppy's dead, and now so is Nick's assassin. Oh, no. It is starting to fall apart for the side of Secret Gods.
Yeah, when you're trying to take these fights into heroes like Undying, you have to be there already set up. Because if you're going in one by one, you're fighting into this Tombstone, all the summons from the Broodmother. Like, you need to have your foundation for your team fight already laying out. You can't just expect to show up and be able to, do things one by one. And that's exactly what ends up happening there. And it's another fight where Secret just a bit disconnected across the board. I think that's, Dawnbreaker shouldn't be getting caught out there perhaps, but at the same time, the follow-up where they try and TP in to salvage it is equally questionable.
It doesn't feel like you can have many more of those instances if your team's Secret and expect to have a chance to win this game. XG on the verge of really tipping the cup and knocking everything out of the cup there. So Assault Cuirass is finished on to the Broodmother. Mentioned that item earlier coming. Morphling, he's now finished his Ags as well. He's got a Yasha on top of that. And I've noticed Morphling is prioritizing the Nyx Assassin, it feels like, in these fights.
Yeah, I mean, Carapace and like having just control, I think, is what he likes from that. Nice find here. That's a big kill onto the old 11 Brood. Did commit a Fiend script, but that's exactly what they're looking for. I think for when it comes to the Morphling, it's just he wants to keep heroes in place so we can right-click them down. So getting an Impale out, even a Carapace potentially. They're just these spells that can be potential setups for him to then follow it up with some nice right-click damage.
Well, again, big kill though onto the Broodmother, and now you definitely want to get objectives out of this, and they certainly can. This is the strength of Secret's lineup right here. Not only that catch, but the tower push, and this also, that presence to just be able to jump you what seems like from such a long distance. They get the kill on the Pango, and PYW is also going to feel the pain. That Tombstone, it'll be beat down plus 200, going the way of Lycan there, I believe.
It was kind of the reverse of what happened earlier, where just one hero gets picked off, and then somehow two more almost out of nowhere get jumped and caught as well. Like, Xtreme Gaming weren't really looking to defend that tower, but they were in the neighborhood, and Secret, with a 5v4, will more than happily take those free kills.
Yeah,
Brood is back now, but now they're waiting for Pengo to respawn, so they're losing this tier 3 tower.
They don't have initiation. They don't have Tombstone. How do they really defend this without that? So this yeah, the tier 3 is going to be denied in the end, but hey, it's dead. Secret's very happy with that, and yeah. On the other side, XG, they're choosing to go for a bit of a defense without the Brood Mother, proving to be the wrong decision, and well, Secret's turn to capitalize, so it's almost like what happened prior there, especially at the bottom lane with the death on Dawnbreaker is almost forgiven, and the lead cuts down to now only a 3K for XG.
Yeah, definitely a scenario where you see some of that, the pressure kind of kicking in, and probably from last game, Xtreme Gaming felt like they could make these kind of greedier moves where they, stick around, throw some spells to delay a tower push like they'll do with Treant. But this time around, you're playing into heroes that punish that. The Nyx Assassin, the Bane with the Nightmare. The catch is just there where, and the Blink Dawnbreaker as well, where, if you're not ready to fight, you shouldn't be anywhere near Secret in that situation. But luckily, there's no Roshan or anything to follow it up. They do lose a tier 3 tower, but they're still poised to kind of fight over this upcoming Roshan, and we'll see if they can get some good vision down kind of in preparation for that one.
Yeah, preparation as we got about a minute 20 remaining before Roshan will spawn, as we can see. Of course, they're not 100% sure, but gonna keep the area around it surrounded. Old 11 putting a lot of webs down over here. Is aware that could be happening. You see the microwing coming out as well. Gonna send out the spiderlings and try to get some more information, but Zyx had enough. They go in with the blink. There's a smackdown of the Silver Guardian, that quick kill. Shortly after on the line, off to the side. The Tombstone's pretty good placement. They have to address that eventually. DY gonna heal himself up. Buyback, by the way, on Lion, but Undying, he's staying dead. BKB for Chrysalis. Gonna wear off soon, but in the back lane's a lockdown of Paparazzi. I believe that was a Fiend's Grip holding him in place. And Lotus Orb eventually comes up. A Lion, that's a dieback on him. And the Requiem going off as well. They catch the Morphling, and Morphling is dead. Pango is dead as well. That Rolling Thunder, I don't know about that one right there. Old 11, he's going back to base, but for how long? The Smackdown, no. It's not going to connect with the Starbreaker, and he should be fine.
I mean, Secret just hitting the strongest timing imaginable here in the mid game here, and using these Lycan Wolves. Rezo just microing them in, creating these initiation opportunities. It looks like Nyx just blinks him blindly there for an Impale, but it's Rezo's Wolves scouting out, giving him the vision onto the high ground, because usually, that's a position where you can't go high ground because Xtreme Gaming have, they've got the ward on that cliff. How do you go into them? But having these summons, having these ways to kind of set up a fight and boldly taking it there, Zayat's fearlessly jumping in, knowing his team would back him up. And then they get the grip initially onto the Pango, even though it gets cancelled. The Pango, by the time he gets Rolling Thunder off, has no health to even fight with it.
I'm actually a little surprised. I'm not saying this wasn't the right decision. They go for the racks and they secure that, but I almost thought they might have gone tier 4 right there and tried to even really finish this game right here, right now. But they do not. They play it certainly in the more safer direction. They get the top racks, and see even some counter warding coming out. They're kind of regrouping, but guess who's up? It's Roshan, right into the Roshan pit, but XG knows this. They have everything. They could certainly still fight this.
Yeah, and that's where they're going to come right back out, knowing that they need to maybe play around detection a bit better. They need some sentries for these Lycan Wolves, but they have their own scouting with these spiders, so they're going to send those out, make sure that Roche isn't going on. So much of these fights just comes down to who gets the initiation. It's not about getting the perfect initiation. It's just about flat up initiating, because there's not any Aeon Discs and whatnot. You initiate with a PYW Lion to Blink Hex, or you get a Blink Impale from a Nyx Assassin. That's going to win you a fight.
Love the Shadow Blade on Shadow Fiend as well. Go with that Lincoln. It's a bit of a defensive measure to go with the BKB. But yeah, the Shadow Blade now giving that offensive prowess. Look at this split from
They've been scouted again. The Lycan Wolf, it's found the Lion.
I mean, both teams are scouting with their minions here. The Wolves, you see the Spiderlings again constantly going out. Buyback from Undying, feeling that a fight could be happening. That Ancient Granite Golem, not necessarily a target you want to be jumping, though.
Yeah.
It's like moving wards for both sides.
Yep. And now Secret have that cliff ward too, so this needs to get dewarded if you want to contest this Roshan. Roshan's getting very low here.
Rolling Thunder, Paparazzi, pretty good placement, but Morphic in the backline says jump. Lincoln's has been popped. Paparazzi has to get out. Roshan's still plenty alive, so he ain't going down. Tombstone on the high ground. The lockdown, the Fiend's Grip, locking up Pingle there in the Rolling Thunder. He is dead. He's out for 53 seconds. Morphling wants to be careful. Waveform's away, but now Old 11 goes in. He slept though. Zayak in the back. That's great. 2 players down. The Requiem goes off, and Team Secret will absolutely destroy Xtreme Gaming. What do they do? Do they go for? That's just over. GG, well played. Wow, what a turnaround.
This game got to a point where, in the team fights, Xtreme Gaming, they were kind of living, but no one was doing any damage. like they got all these items. Like the Brute had a great game early on, got this fast Wraith pack, was building into an AC, but you know that's sometimes the issue with morphing as a carry. We kind of see it a bit there. Is like he's gone for this very stat heavy build. It's not like the old E-Blade shotgun morph, and in all these fights, secret pop BKB, and then suddenly feel invincible.
That's a game to me